I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late. I'm late getting the fall garden in. The problem is we had so many things still growing, we kind of just left them growing. So we just now today, Cooper, we just now today started cleaning out the buckets and amending the buckets, and we're going to show you how we do that here in just a few. But I'm going to show you this garden first, what we have planted, and then when we go to the next garden, I'll show you that zoo before we actually get started taking everything out. Now, I did have a method to my madness. This garden bed here all has the gutter covers, which will make it pretty easy if I need to either put up protection for bugs or protection from frost. This row is broccoli. There are just 4. And I added some companion plants there of chrysanthemums. Remember, if you look back at those videos, the chrysanthemums are really good to have because of the pyrethrin that is in them is a natural deterrent for bugs. Now in these 4 larger buckets, they look a little pitiful right now, but I've got celery and some butter crunch lettuce, and in the 2 center buckets it's celery, lettuce, and some curly kale. The 2 green buckets still have pepper plants in them, and I couldn't bear to rip them out because it's bell peppers and the cowhorn peppers, which are some of our favorites. And then the back row is identical to the front, except instead of broccoli, it is cauliflower. Now, whether or not we're going to get all this to grow and turn into vegetables, I don't know. Worst case scenario, chicken food. All of these 4 rows here are cabbage. Got a little celery mixed in places, and some romaine lettuce. But again, if I need to cover them, I can for protection from the bugs or from frost. Hopefully we'll get some cabbage out of all this. We'll see. Well, as you can see, we still have a ton of plants, mostly pepper plants. Now, I stopped spraying for bugs or fungus 2 months ago, thinking that they would, die out. Well, they haven't. So I've got to pull them. Now, I will harvest everything that's harvestable, but then they need to be pulled, and I'm going to show you how to rejuvenate the soil in place for planting the fall crop. But before we do that, did you know that pepper plants are perennials? They are. And there is a way to overwinter your pepper plants. Now, why would you want to do that? Especially because, if there's any kind of disease, fungus, well, you wouldn't if it was a diseased plant. But the hot pepper plants take a long time to grow, and especially to produce. There's one in here that I want to overwinter, and I'm going to show you right now how to do that. This is a roasted red pepper plant, and it takes a really pretty long time for them to turn red. So it's the one that I'd like to overwinter. So the first thing I'm going to do is harvest all these. That was bad. And now we're ready for the severe prune job. Pepper plants, the stem grows up and then it forks off into a Y. Sometimes that Y is low to the ground, sometimes it's up a lot higher, but this one's kind of in between. So what I'm gonna do, get ready, it's drastic. At the Y, I'm gonna come right above a node, which is where leaves and stems would grow from, and cut. Same thing here, here's the leaf node. Cut. Now, to overwinter these, it kind of is going to depend on what climate you live in. If you don't ever get down below freezing, you can actually overwinter these in the ground or in a container and just protect it. If not, you're going to need to overwinter it inside, which is where I will be overwintering mine. And because of that, there's some special things that we need to do. Now, if there had been any leaves down here, I would have also taken them off. All I want is the stick, so to speak. You want to use a pot that is between 1 and 3 gallons. I'm using a 2-gallon, and I'm using a grow bag. Here's my 2-gallon grow bag, and I have some new potting mix in here. This is Happy Frog indoor and outdoor potting mix. I like this brand because it has mycorrhizae and humic acid in it, and you want to use brand new potting mix. In this cup, I've got a handful of perlite, a handful of worm castings, and a handful of millie poo, which I did some videos about millie poo this year. I'm just going to mix that in. And now, I use my hands and lift up the root ball. Now, I'm not going to be able to get all the roots. I just want to get the bulk of it. And I'm going to shake off as much of this as I can. Just in case there's any bugs or spores in this mix that's been outside. A little bit more potting mix. Wasn't quite sure how big the root ball would be. Okay. Now I'm going to fill it up with potting mix. Now I'm not going to go over the top of where the existing root ball starts. A little bit more. Now the next thing I want to add is some fertilizer. We'll talk a minute about the fertilizer. The only reason that I am adding fertilizer is to help this plant to heal because it's in stress right now. I just cut off the majority of it. I didn't save all of the roots, so it's stressed. The purpose of the fertilizer is to give it energy so that it can start to heal. But I don't want to give a high nitrogen fertilizer. You need something with a higher phosphorus and potassium. Remember, NPK, the N is nitrogen, then you got phosphorus and potassium. So I need something that is high in phosphorus or higher in phosphorus and potassium and low in nitrogen. I honestly don't have anything right now. I wasn't thinking ahead about doing this until we came out here, so I will have to get something to fertilize with on the top here. Put a tiny bit more potting mix in. Now, one of the problems with taking plants indoors, a lot of times you'll get fungus gnats. The way I like to prevent that in this situation is to top it with just a little bit of sand, just a thin layer of sand, and that tends to help with the fungus gnats. Let's talk about watering. I will water this in after I go get some fertilizer later on today, and then I will take it indoors. Now, for the first week or two, you don't need to have it in a bunch of sunlight because that will stress it. We just want to slowly increase some sun. If it's in a sunny south-facing window, you need about 4 hours a day, but not really hot sun. So if it's beating down at noon, wait till the afternoon to put it in the window. If you don't have a sunny window that you can put it in, you can put it under a grow light. And in that situation, the grow lights aren't as strong as the sun. So I would give it between 6 and maybe 8, 6 to 8 hours a day with it on. Next spring, when it starts to grow and you're ready to bring it outside, you need to acclimate it just like you do new seedlings. Take it out an hour a day, and then the next day 2 hours, still in the shade, and just exactly like you do seedlings, increasing the time outdoors, increasing the time in some sun every day until it's completely hardened off. And then it will be ready to plant out in your buckets. And you will have a roasted red pepper tree producing those beautiful peppers far sooner than you would if you started from seed. Well, I looked in my supplies and I did have what I needed after all. Rggs products. The Big Bloomin' Guano is a 040, no nitrogen, 4% phosphorus, no potassium. So I need something that's higher in potassium. This Catalyst by Rggs is a 3-1-10. So that's going to give me just a tiny bit of nitrogen and a lot of potash. Both the phosphorus and the potassium, the potash, is what's going to help those roots to heal and regenerate. I've mixed about a half a gallon of water and just according to the directions added in those liquid products. Okay, so here I have an oil drip pan. Had it a while. I've got a few of those that I got from Dollar General. That's going to hold the water. Now I'm going to water this in, and we'll see how much water comes out into the pan. And if a lot remains in the pan after 15-20 minutes, I will dump that. All right, it's gotten its drink. I've added just a thin layer of clean sand on top, again, to help with fungus gnats. Now, I brought it in on my front porch. It's sitting on my little table that Randy built for me the other day. You can see there's quite a bit of water in the pan. I'll see how much it's going to soak up. Now, pepper plants do not like to sit in water. And when you're overwintering a pepper plant, you certainly don't want to give it a lot of water because you can cause the roots to rot. It's better to have it a little on the dry side. So this will not be watered very frequently at all. Only when it's looking really dry, I'll do the finger test. You stick your finger down in there all the way, and about 3 inches down, if it's moist, I'll leave it alone. If it's just damp, not heavily wet. If it's really dry, then I will give it a drink. I'm going to keep it on this table for about a week. No direct sunlight really comes on the porch right here. After a week, our temperatures are still okay. Highs in the low 70s and lows in the about 60 or 62, something like that. Really pretty perfect. So I will transport it to my table that gets about 4 hours of sun a day until it gets too cold. Once the nighttime temperatures are getting down into the 50s, that's when I will bring it in my south-facing window in the laundry room. Okie dokie, back to the garden. I went over this the first of the year, but let me go over it quickly again. If this were your second season mix, a lot of people say second year. I don't like to say that. I like to say second season because we have basically 2, even 3 seasons where we live. But if it were second season, you would want to, at this point, remove as many roots as you could. And even though like this bucket here is about halfway down from the peppers that were in it, there's still a lot of roots that you'd want to pull out. So this bucket here just had flowers in it, but you want to remove as many of the roots as possible and the top 2 inches of your mix. The reason you want to remove the top 2 inches is in case you have any spores or eggs from bugs in there that are wanting to overwinter. You want to take down the top 2 inches. So in your second season, that's all you'd have to do is take the top 2 inches off and then put new mix in. Now for third season, which is what we have to do a little bit extra work filling it in place. And after this fall crop, we'll have to start over next year with brand new mix. The peat moss will be too broken down, and it won't function like it's supposed to with wicking and keeping things light and fluffy. there's so little mix in this one, I'm going to go ahead and add some new mix first. Get them all up about the same where they would normally be if we had just taken 2 inches off the top. So, for third season, you've taken off the top 2 inches. Now this looks like more than 2 inches. It is more than 2 inches, but originally when we came out here, they were settled to about right here anyway. So it's more than 2 inches from the top, but it's 2 inches from where it began. So what we want to add for third season mix, first thing, is I'm going to add perlite in here. And I'm adding about 3/4 of a cup. Then I'm using this sparingly because I don't have a whole lot to do all these buckets. But this is worm castings, and so I'm just adding a handful of that. And then I do have quite a good bit of millie poo, and sprinkling that in too. So we want to mix. And then we're just going to fill it up with new potting mix. Now this mix is dampened. And because the bucket is already wicking, normally you'd have to wait. If you were starting over brand new, you'd have to wait a few days to make sure that it's wicking. But the bottom of the bucket is already wicking, and when I plant, I'm going to be watering from the top anyway, so I can go ahead and plant today. This specific mix I'm using, we didn't make our own mix. Randy's out of town so much traveling that I just bought mix, and it is the Happy Frog stuff, same stuff I used to show you how to do the pepper plant, that has mycorrhizae and humic acid in it. Okay, so now these 3 buckets are ready to plant. I want to go over something again that we've gone over a lot of times, but if you're new to this system, you may not know it. Both on my Facebook group page and also on the Rain Gutter Garden page that Larry Hall started, if you look in the file section there, you'll find some very beneficial things. And one of them was created by my friend, Bud Endringham. He's from Canada. He's been doing the Rggs system a very, very long time. And it is a file that he revised, and it says something like revised and a date. What size grow bag do I use? This is it. It has a wealth of great information in it. I'm going to try to come a little bit closer. Randy, will you check to make sure it's showing up? Or can you see it?
Closer. Yep.
Okay. It lists your vegetables, fruit and vegetables, and then it has the sizes of containers. 1 gallon, 2, 3, 5, Walmart bag or 7-gallon bag, 10-gallon bag. And then there's a section called special instructions. Now, it goes through and you have all these different ones. And it gives, the special instructions vary. Like right here for, let's say cucumbers, there's an asterisk. You have to go to the back page to see what the asterisk means. But then there are things like garlic, space cloves 4 inches apart. Kale, sow and thin to 6 inches apart, and so forth and so on. A lot of work he did on this. And the back page shows 1 asterisk requires the 10-10-10 ring of fertilizer. 2 asterisks, while not necessary, these plants will benefit from a ring of 10-10-10 fertilizer at half the suggested amount for the ring of fertilizer. 3 asterisks, these plants prefer a slightly acidic mix, and so no lime is added to the mix. And for corn, he's got a whole separate file for corn. My point in telling you about this is because not only do I keep this in my gardening notebook, but I use it for planning out. This year, I did not draw out my garden beds. I had a file on my computer that beautifully had all of it where I could just draw or write or type things in. And my computer wasn't backed up last year and I lost it. And I just haven't taken the time to redo it. So this fall, I'm just going to plant, just kind of look at what I have and the seeds I have and then just go for it. Therefore, I need to have this out here with me to know how many things I can put in a container. For example, all of these buckets are 5 gallons. So I'm only going to look at the 5-gallon column. Collards. We like a lot of collards. It says you can plant 1 to 2 in a 5-gallon bucket. Now, I've planted collards many years, and I would say that if you want to get some really big collards, only plant 1 per 5-gallon bucket or 1 per Walmart bag, because they will get really big. If you prefer to harvest them maybe when they're a lot younger, then you could put 2 in there, but just know that they're not going to get as large as they normally would if you only put 1 in the bucket. I'm going to take the opportunity here to show you in planting these 3 buckets how to plant radishes, and it would be the same for carrots. Now you need to have at least a good 8 inches of potting mix for your radishes, and I would think at least 8, maybe upwards toward 11 for your carrots. The first thing I'm going to do is, this is damp. Remember I told you it was already dampened potting mix. I'm just going to lightly pack with my hand, not firm, but just so it's not quite so loose. Your root crops need a very fluffy mix. If it's too compacted, you'll see the roots actually pushing up. You'll see the radish or the carrot pushing up out of the soil because it's too compacted below, and so it's coming upward. That's not what you want. All right, so these are my radishes. Don't know about these. These were bought in 2016. They might, same with that. These are brand new ones. Giant of Sicily. And this is a brand new one. Easter basket mix. These are also old. Radish pink beauty. I think what I will do is my old ones, rather than sacrifice a whole bucket in case they don't come up, I'll put a few in each bucket, and then I'll make sure my new ones are also in the buckets. So let's do this. Now if you look at the back of your package, it should have sewing instructions. This one really doesn't. It's usually 1/4 of an inch. All right, so I'm going to kind of just go around, I think, the outside ring here with these. Now, once these start coming up, they're going to have to be thinned, and I will show you that process when it's time. Easter basket mix. Fun. Don't quite know what we're going to get with those. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I'm just going to sprinkle just a tiny bit more potting mix on the top, since they do like to be under the soil about 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to want to water this in, but only as much as about the depth of the seed, and the seed is really small, so I've got it on the lowest setting I can have it on. That's it. And now I need to use some straw. I'm going to put a very thin little layer of straw on top, like about 1/4 of an inch. The reason I'm doing the straw is because radishes and carrots like to germinate in cool weather, like 70 degrees or below. And I mean, we're right at that, but we've got a few days that are going to be a little bit higher than 70, like mid-70s. And putting the straw on top will help to hold in the moisture. They will not sprout if they dry out. So I'm also going to slightly dampen my straw. Every day, a couple times a day, you need to come out and check and make sure that the potting mix is still damp. If it's not, keep an eye on it. You need to gently give it a quick spray. Once you start to see your little greens coming up, the green tops, you want to carefully remove this straw. And I'll try to show you that process in a video as they grow, and show you the next steps about thinning them out. Alrighty, I'm going to do these wonderful white hailstones. I love radishes. Around the outside edge, just like I did with the others. Carrots, as I've said, would be exactly the same method. These giant of Sicily radishes are very large. They get 2 inches around. Radishes are a quick harvest. There you have it.